I just want to follow up our last call. It was our first call. We went an hour long. We covered LP Mama in depth with the different tactics, questions, any wins, anything exciting going on. So you guys can fill me in. Let me know how it's going. This is correct.
I know
right?
I've had like,
This is what we covered on the last call, right? LP Mama?
we did. I know that there are several people that like mentioned it, and we're talking about it, the analogy that you gave. So yeah, it was good.
Cool. Cool. All right. So I want to hear from the team though. Like, is anybody role playing this? Is anybody practicing it? Have we implemented any of this into our client relationships here?
So we actually have been role playing it. We got connected. Our team members have connected with Tom Tool's team members, and we're now actively role playing 2 days a week at a minimum and shooting for 3.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. So we're making progress. That's great. How many people are on your team, Robert?
4 salespeople.
Okay, cool. Cool. How about the big room? How about the big room? We got anybody in there do anything good? Show of hands, at least. You got one in the background. I don't know if I can hear you guys that well, so I guess I'm going to talk more classroom style here versus interactive. So, hey, I want to continue on our journey here of basics, kind of 101. Okay, so I know a lot of you knew LP Mama, but it sounded like I introduced it in a different way that is very implementable. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Like you guys are able to implement this in a new way. And so again, please carry around that police officer notepad, if you want to call it. Have LP Mama written down and make sure that you are using these tactics, pain versus pleasure, getting the clarity out of them, like really use that. I want to take it to the next step here though. And again, some of you guys may have heard this, but I'll give you some different perspectives. I want to talk a little bit about personality types. Okay. So a personal journey that I'm on, and I might have shared with you guys in the last call, I can't remember. My wife and I are in the process of fostering a little 12-year-old boy. And it is absolute hell. Okay. It is no fun. I'm learning so much along the way. One of the things I learned though the other day in this that applies to the personality types that I want to tie in here is the Robert says he's been talking about the sand mafia for weeks. I love it. But one of the things that I've learned the other day that is I learned it through learning how to talk with kids a little bit, but I can't help it as a salesperson. I'm applying it to our business, right? And it's the concept around the 3 R's. Anybody ever heard of the 3 R's before? I don't know if I can see any hands in there, but it is rules without relationships lead to rebellion. Rules without relationships lead to rebellion. And so from my perspective, I'm just trying to get this kid to wash his hands and take a shower and do all the things they're supposed to do. But we're not in the healthiest place in the world as a new foster parent because he hates everything and everybody because it's change, right? And so he's rebelling on me like crazy. So I really started thinking about well, how many of us right now going through this market shift are giving our clients rules without a relationship and the client is rebelling on us? For example, you can't get that interest rate. You can't get that house for that price. You can't use an online lender because the local lender is the way to go, but we don't have a relationship with them. So what does the customer do? They ghost us. They tell us no. They fight us. Maybe you got them in a buyer's rep agreement and they're like, I don't want to work with you. And then you're surprising them and letting them know, well, you got to. You're contractually there. Rules without relationship leads to rebellion. Can you guys agree with that? Anybody ever been in a situation like that before?
Yeah, if you're not in rapport, it's not going to work. Right? They're not going to believe you. They're not going to trust you. I think likability is probably the least aspect, the least important part of the rapport building process, because if someone trusts you and they know that you are the right person for the job selling their home or, buying a property, whatever it is, then, even if they don't like you, they'll still respect you and do what you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of on the same topic a little bit. How many leaders do we have on this call? You mentor people, you're in charge of someone else, you're helping with training. Is there many of those on this call? One in the big group room. Okay. All right. I'll save this topic for another day then. I had something else I was thinking about, but I want to stay on track here. The 4 personality types. So you guys have some of you have probably heard this before, but I want to give you a different twist on it. So everybody got something to draw with. Okay. Get the pen and pad out. I need you to draw something out for me here. Okay. So I want you to draw a box and put 2 lines, 1 vertical, 1 horizontal in the middle. We're going to come up with 4 boxes. Okay. 4 boxes. All right. In those 4, so you got in the top left-hand corner, I'm going to draw it out with you so I can just think through the way you're thinking. Okay. We're going to talk about the 4 personality types here. Top left-hand corner box, I want you to write down analytical. Okay. Analytical in the top left-hand box. And again, I want to communicate with you guys, but it's a little hard in this environment, the classroom. So I'm just going to talk through this. When we think analytical, so when I ask this question, so many people say engineer right out the gate, right? But like we think of positions and careers a lot of times. Don't get that mixed up, because with what true analyticals are, there's a lot of traits with that type of field. But analytical, what I want you to write inside that box as a definition under analytical is they're detail oriented. It's all about the details, right? Details are very important to them. They have to understand the why behind everything. They need explanations, like details. Okay. The bottom left box, I want you to write amiable. Amiable puts others first, generally speaking, right? So amiable personality. Top right-hand corner, I want you to write down the word driver. How many drivers do we have in the room? Show of hands. Your way or the highway, right? You know, drivers are results oriented. We don't really care how we get to the result. We just want the result. Result oriented. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, I want you to write down the word expressive. Expressive. When we think expressive, I don't know how else to define expressive other than expressive. You know, they're life of the party. They have a lot of fun, maybe a little drama, a little bit of everything, right? But like they're smiling. They're always smiling, right? And so many of you, again, I'm sure have known this, but I want to give you some tactics on how to communicate with these people and give you some examples around this.
Doug, can you give us the description of amiable again?
Amiable, in my words, is they put others first.
Got it. Thank you.
They put others first, right? They're the people that have to talk to somebody about it, right? Well, I need my parents involved. Depends on what someone else thinks. What do you think? You know, they're the ones that are always asking, well, what do you think? You know, what do you want to do? You know, where do you want to go to eat? I don't care. You know, wherever you want to go, right?
You got to also be concerned, or you got to be mindful that just because they're amiable doesn't mean that they're going to do what you say, because they might tell you to your face, and amiable will say, oh yeah, for sure, and then go and do something completely different. They're just telling you that just to be nice to you, because they don't want to have confrontation. So don't just assume that an amiable is going to be a pushover. They may not be a pushover at all.
You might even put in that box fear of conflict. Just like Nazar said, fear of conflict, because they will tell you what you want to hear to your face sometimes, because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but their skill set, natural skill set is not like I can handle a confrontation, right? So they'll just tell you what you want to hear and move away. So within these 4 personality types, we have everyone has a primary and a secondary personality type. Okay, it only goes horizontal or vertical. Okay, so there are analytical amiables or amiable analyticals. There's analytical drivers or vice versa. But if you think you are a driver amiable or an analytical expressive, that is not a thing unless you're bipolar. Okay, so let's stay away from thinking that it goes diagonally. You guys with me? Show of thumbs. Okay, just make sure we're on the same page here, okay? So within these 4 boxes, I want to talk about some tactics that on how to communicate with these people. At the very top of the box, we're talking about an analytical driver or driver analytical. So on the very top, the tactic that I want you to write down is we're going to have conversations wrapped around task, T-A-S-K, task-based. I'd write down task-based, T-A-S-K, task-based. So for example, if you're picking up that this person is an analytical driver, right? These people are in control in their mind, right? They've got to know the details and they want the results they want. They've got to know the why behind everything. They got to understand everything. They delegate or they have to be delegated to. Very important. So for example, when you're wrapping up a meeting with a potential buyer, I think it's very valuable to make sure you repeat the order back to them. And you say, moving forward, here's what I'm going to do, and here's what you're going to do, and do you have any questions? That person is going to connect with you at a really high level if you talk through the form of task and list. Some of you guys are in Southern California. I'm in Tennessee. I'm in the South. We're like meat and three restaurants out here, right? Like, if I go out to, if I come out and visit Robert and he takes me to that fancy Mexican restaurant, that's like awesome. What's that place called? What am I talking about, Robert? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Javier's,
right? I'm going to be like, hey, I want the fajitas, but hold this, and I want the sour cream on the side, and I add the cheesy rice, and I want all this stuff. And they're going to be like, okay. And I'm like, they didn't write it down. They're going to screw it up. And I'm going to live in anxiety until my order shows up. Right? Anybody ever have that feeling before? Right? And then you're impressed when they show up, but you're still like, why did they put me through all that stress? Right? And so they didn't get my wife's order yet. And that's going to be even crazier. So don't let that person live in anxiety because you didn't repeat the order. You didn't explain what's going to happen next. You didn't explain to them what you're expecting of them. Does that make sense, guys? Show a thumbs. All right, cool. I'm going to communicate through fingers today. All right. Hopefully I don't get the wrong one. On the bottom side, all right, amiable expressives, on the very bottom of that box, I want you to write down relationship-based. If you pick up that someone is an amiable expressive or an expressive amiable, this is the type of client when you're driving through the neighborhood, you want to tell them about who you sold homes to in that neighborhood and what families are there and who lives there and where, who the local doctor is and who they should go to the bank for and who's the dentist. Like, they get all excited about relationships. When you're introducing your lender to them, because I'm sure we all have our preferred lender, like we talked about in LP Mama when we were on the mortgage side of things, like my lender's name is Bruce. So you sound like when you talk to Bruce, Bruce, right? No, I don't. Oh my gosh, you don't know Bruce? He's like the best loan officer in town. That speaks volume to the amiable expressives because they're all about relationship based. Does this make sense, guys? Okay, cool. So on the left side, the analytical amiable or the amiable analytical, I want you to write down the left side of this, take things slow. Take things slow. Okay. The analytical amiable has to know all the details and cares what everybody else thinks. Therefore, they're unable to make decisions on their own under pressure. This is the person that has to think about it, talk about it, pray about it, ask someone about it. Like, they're not likely to make a decision under pressure, which has been very difficult for analytical amiables through COVID. Can you guys agree? Like, they keep missing out on houses because they have 15-minute window to look at it and they better write the offer immediately. And so that's challenging for that person. So instead of trying to convince that person, that analytical amiable or amiable analytical, instead of trying to convince them that they're going to miss out again, you should probably slow things down and say, hey, so this looks like a great house. You guys seem to be enjoying it. I know you're going to want to think about this. So, I know you're going to want to go home and sleep on this. So I want to give you your space that you need. If they are ready to pull the trigger, they'll let you know. But if you start trying to pressure them, they will lie to you and they will never return your phone call again. Right? And so they really struggle with conflict. They're going to run from you. Do we have any analytical amiables in the room? I got one maybe in the back, right? Or maybe you're pointing to someone, I can't tell back there. But oh yeah, it was a point. I just saw the arm punch. And but like, if they're gonna go along with the flow until they get it into their comfort zone, they're like, that was uncomfortable, not doing that again. So you really got to slow things down. I see that table laughing back there because they're all pointing at that one. But you got to slow things down with them. Now, there's still a closing tactic to this, right? Hey, so let's go over the contract with you that I'm going to let you take home with you. So you know everything. I want you to know every out you could possibly have. So tonight, when you go home and you sleep on it, even though you know the house ain't going to be there tomorrow, tonight when you go home and sleep on it, you're not wondering anything. So let's cover all these things and go over everything with them so they understand. And at the end, ask them, say, as you sleep on this tonight, do you have any questions that maybe I can help you think through off the top of your mind now? The final closing question I like to ask them is, in the event you go home and sleep on this house and you decide tonight or in the morning you want to call and you want to make an offer on it, are you going to be upset with yourself if I have to tell you that house is gone? Not upset with me, not upset with the seller. Are you going to be upset with yourself? Or are you going to be okay? Is it going to be fine? And if it's going to be fine, I'm not going to be upset. They're probably not going to make an offer. But if they're like, well, I might be a little upset. That would be disappointing. I really like this house. Well, what do you think we should do? Put it on them. Questions, 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 not tell them what to do because they don't like to be told what to do. Does this make sense, guys? Okay, moving on to the right side. Driver expressive. Driver expressive.
Would you consider that leading them to the answer instead of telling them the answer? I mean, is that another way of looking at it or thinking about it?
Yeah. So like Nazar and I, went through coaches training at one point in time. Nazar probably knows a lot about this, I'm sure. There's directive coaching and there's coaching through discovery. You got to coach these people through discovery. They got to discover it on their own, right? If you tell them what to do, they won't listen, right, Nazar? So Randy, you did the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. We learned a lot in that. So I want to challenge you guys to think. You gotta lead the horse to water with those, okay? But take things slow, respect them. And that's really hard for a driver expressive, by the way, right? So if you're a driver expressive in the room and you're like, that person sucks, they're never going to do anything. They're probably never going to do anything with you because you're treating them the way you want to be treated, not the way they want to be treated. So we got to recognize these traits and act on them quickly. So if we flip to the right side of the box, the driver expressives, I want you to write down the note, move quickly. Move quickly. Now, do not get this mixed up with talk fast. Does that make sense? Do not talk fast, because when you talk fast, they're only processing bits and pieces of what you're saying, if anything at all. But driver expressives, or vice versa, including me, we all have ADD or ADHD, whatever they call it these days, right? We have squirrel moments left and right. And if you're going, and especially for the analytical amiables that are working with the driver expressive, if you're like, well, what should we offer? What should we do? If you're asking the customer that, like, you're making them think. And this personality type doesn't like to think. You got to tell them what to do. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to offer this. This is how we're going to structure it. And this is going to win you the house. Sign here. Right? If you don't do it, I'm calling my wife. We're buying this house. That's how good of an idea this is. Like, that's how you've got to treat those people, because they don't have the bandwidth to stay focused long enough. Does it make sense, guys? Okay, so any questions on this? Pretty simple stuff, but intriguing. I like human behavior. It's really interesting. Any questions at all from anybody?
You want to, like you mentioned the speed of speech. I always assumed and just made the connotation with fast speaker with the driver, but it's funny to hear because you're not a fast speaker. And so I think, like where they're from might also have an impact on, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. They might have it disguised as one, but they might be another, which makes it a little more tricky, right? Because if I met you, I would never assume that you were a driver. Unless I started to get to know you more, right?
Right.
Then I would be like, oh wait, yeah, this guy doesn't mess around. He doesn't want a paragraph. He wants the bullet points, because that's, anyone that talks to me knows I don't care about the story. I just want the bullet points.
Yeah. I want to give you guys a little story here to make this really hone in, because we're all guilty of what I'm about to share with you. So about a year ago, well, I'll rewind a little bit. Probably 6-7 years ago, I sold a house to this lady. Okay. She was a expressive, amiable. She is an expressive, amiable. And I sold her a house, great customer to work with. She was a lot of fun. And time went on, and my business grew. I stepped out of production. I was no longer selling. I'm running my team. And she reaches out to me again and she says, "Hey, Doug, we want to make a move." Great. So I got some news that's happened. My business has grown. I've got it to the point now where I'm unable to serve clients at the level I used to, because I have responsibilities of a lot of other people. And so, but I want to connect you with like my agent. And when I say my agent, like this is the agent that I would personally even use if I were going to purchase a home today. And it was a guy named Neil on my team at the time, and Neil was a driver, like a driver, not even a driver expressive, not a driver analytical. He's like hardcore driver. He's a great dude, and he was hungry, and he was kind of newer, and I knew he'd take good care of her. So connect them. He sells a house, all good, right? So I don't know, maybe 9 months, a year ago, I get a text message from this buyer again. Her name's Sally. And Sally does a 3-way text message to Neil and me this time. Okay. The text message says, and I want you to visualize this, full of emojis. Okay. If there's a word, if there's an emoji for the word, there was an emoji instead of the word. Instead of saying house, it was a picture of a house. It was an emoji. And it's, "Hey, Doug and Neil," exclamation marks everywhere. Caps letters everywhere, right? "Hey, Doug and Neil, hope you both are amazing. Been following you guys on social media. Looks like you're doing wonderful things. I just wanted to reach out because we saw a house on my mother's street in Savannah Hills, some subdivision, and I see it's for sale. And it's right down the street from my mother. We've had another child, and I want to check in with my mom to see how she would feel. I haven't told my mom yet, but I want to check in with my mom to see how she would feel about living on this street, on the same street as us. But if you have time this week, I don't want to bother your weekends or evenings. I'll take a day off of work. Just let me know when. And can we maybe go take a peek at that house if you think it's worth it? Let me know your thoughts. Can't wait to see you guys again. Yada, 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 full of emojis. Right? This is an amiable expressive. Can you guys tell? I wish I could just show you the text. It's an amiable expressive to the max. She's concerned about what her mother thinks. She's the perfect client. She's willing to take off of work so I can show her a house in the middle of the day. Who does that? Right? That's her mindset going into this text message. So I'm trained on personality types. So I start texting. I'm responding to everything. It's so good to hear from you too, Sally. Thanks for following us on social media. We try really hard to give lots of value and stay connected with people. How is your family? That's exciting. You got a new one on the way. Your mom lives on the street. Ha, ha, ha. Are you sure you want to live there? Like, I'm having fun with her, right? Throwing emojis in. Thank you so much. I wish all my other clients were just like you, willing to consider our time, but you don't have to take off of work. We're happy to meet you on maybe one evening after work. And right as I'm getting to the end, I'm about to hit send, and Neil, driver, Neil jumps in. 3-way text. I should have texted Neil right away and said, don't say a thing, because I should have known. But Neil jumps in and says, Sally, that house won't last. Let's go today. That's all he said. Willing to offer value, willing to be there for Sally. but he talked to him in the driver mentality. And I saw that, I was like, oh, well, maybe it'll be okay. He did sell him a house last time. I'm sure it'll be fine. She responded back, let me check with my husband, period. Who mirrored who? Sally mirrored Neil when I had just spent way too long writing a novel back to Sally. I should have been faster. I should have been quicker on my toes. Neil shut Sally down. What's going through Sally's head? He doesn't have time for me. I'm bothering him. I should have only text Doug. Oh, shoot, I'm going to have to work with Neil now because I pulled him in and he kind of scares me a little bit. He's intimidating. All of these scary thoughts are going through Sally's head. Can you guys agree?
Yeah, and for me, speaking from a driver's personality, like I wouldn't, you know, my natural intuition would be like, I don't give a crap. If you want to see this house, I'll show it to you. You know.
Yeah.
But with that, I can do that. I can say, I'm only going to work with people that are drivers like me that are, you know, cut the bullshit and get right to the point. But I'm losing out on 3/4 of the population that are not like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And guess what? I don't want to work with people like you, Nazar. I've actually already tried to work with people like you. Just kidding. No, but you like it's challenging, right? So we need to think. There are 4 pieces of the spectrum here that we need to be very nimble. We got to be able to recognize these personality types and mirror those so they can feel most comfortable working with you. It goes the other way too. I mean, as a driver expressive, you know, if I'm a buyer and I'm working with an agent and they happen to be an analytical, amiable, maybe, you know, like I'm just sending them a picture of a house with a question mark behind it as a customer. And if they want to give me a novel about it, I'm not even reading it. I'm just like, can we go see it or not? You know? And so for the analyticals in the room, you got to make sure that you're not just going way too deep that you're losing the focus of your client. Does this make sense, guys? Show with thumbs. Middle, sideways, up, down, where are we at? Okay, cool. So now let me just bring this back home to the 3 R's. Rules without relationships lead to rebellion, right? And so the best way to create a relationship as a salesperson specifically is we've got to be skilled salespeople that first recognize personality types. We've got to ask lots of questions. That's what we have LP Mama for. Because if you just focus on these 2 things, personality types and LP Mama, you're going to all of a sudden have a much higher conversion rate because you're now able to connect with more people. If you're sitting there telling yourself, I don't have the highest conversion rate that I want to have right now, I can almost promise you it has to do with everything we've talked about in our 2 sessions so far. We're not asking the right questions and we're not connecting with people.
What do you think would be a good way to practice discovering their personality type? Like, is it just listening? Is there some questions we can ask to be able to pull that out of them? What do you think?
So it takes some self-education. You need to watch videos, read books, learn about personality types. Okay, so just study it. Just, hey, Google, what's a driver personality? What's an analytical personality? What are the 4 personality types? Just wrap your head around it. Then when you role play, after the role play is over, you should say, okay, now that it's over, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you were a driver analytical. You were driver analytical. And the person should say, nope, I was an analytical amiable. And here's why. And maybe the person acting wasn't acting properly. So like you guys get to work through that. But in your role plays, you should start labeling each other like that. You know, the silly game where you put like the card on your head and you act like something and then the other person has to say like, well, who am I acting like? Like maybe you should walk around and do some role plays and say, you know, put the driver on your head, and then someone, you don't know that word's on your head. And your coworker comes up to you and they're like, hey, you ready to buy this house? They should be like, I'm a driver, right? Or, hey, Sally, what's going on? Good to see you. Hug them, right? I must be an expressive, you know? Hey, Sally, how's the family? What's happening? Like, hey, have you done anything great with kids lately? Like, how's business? Like, maybe they're amiable, right? Because they like to talk about everybody else, you know? Analytical, like, hey, how's your conversion going right now? Like, what's going on? How can I help you with the data points? Like, you guys see what I'm saying? It takes practice, role play and practice. So, is this helpful, guys?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Hey, next call, just give you guys a heads up. I want everybody to be really prepared because Nazar, correct me if I'm wrong. Can everybody list a house on the team?
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to list more houses? All right, cool. I'm a little surprised the hands didn't just fly up in the air. I've got a seller script that I want to work with you guys on. So I'm going to get it to you guys right before our next call. We're going to start getting into some real role plays. So Nazar in the next call, maybe if we can have a couple brave souls, maybe sit up front near the mic and we can do a little role playing. But I'll make sure we get the scripts in your hands too. I want to talk about some generating seller appointments. Even if you don't feel you're prepared to list a house yet, I want you to be prepared to set the appointment and take someone with you that can. Sound good?
All right.
All right, guys. Hope this was helpful. Good to see you all. Randy, great to see you. Old friend, had been too long. So catch you guys later. All right.
Thanks, Doug. This was awesome, brother. See you next week.
Thank you, guys. See ya.